The most powerful country in the world, which in the last century created a new order and which spreads its influence all over the world. United States of America. Home of burgers, technology and the LGBTQ+ community. That's exactly what we're talking about today. As in the last video about Italy, we will go through the geography, population, history, economy and geopolitics of the USA. Before we start, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. It's a few seconds and you anytime can change your mind. Without further ado, let's get started. The United States of America is a huge country. By land area they are on the 4th place in the world, between China and Brazil. As its name suggests, it is located on the American continent, specifically in North America. The eastern and southern coasts are washed by the Atlantic Ocean, while the western one is washed by the Pacific. The northernmost point is Barrow in Alaska, whose average temperature is not much different from that of the Arctic. The southernmost point is Key West in Florida, a popular tourist destination that is only about 100 kilometers away from Cuba. In the USA, you can experience almost all types of climates, from subpolar in Alaska, to tropical in the south, desert throughout the central and southern territories, continental, mountainous in the Cordillera and, believe it or not, Mediterranean in California. How Mediterranean climate? Isn't the Mediterranean Sea in Europe? Well yes, but in this region a temperate climate similar to that of the Mediterranean Sea, because of their relief. The highest point is Denali on McKinley in Alaska, at 6,190 meters, while the lowest point is Badwater Basin in California's Death Valley National Park, with an elevation of 86 below sea level. The longest rivers in the United States are Missouri, Mississippi, which are literally the same length, Yukon River in Alaska, Rio Grande near Mexico, Colorado in guess where. On the border with Canada, there are the biggest lakes in the country, such as Superior, Michigan, Huron, Erie, and Ontario. Here are some basic geography facts about the US. Now let's move to the population. United States is the third largest country by population. 340 million people call this country their home. As most of you know, the United States is made up of 50 federal states, with the Federal District of Washington, which is also the capital, but it is not located in the state of Washington, because why would it be so simple? The largest state in the USA by size is Alaska, with a total area of 1.7 million square kilometers, while the smallest is Rhode Island with only 4,000 square kilometers. The biggest state by population is California, with almost 40 million inhabitants. The smallest is Wyoming, with just 567,000 people. The United States also owns 14 overseas territories, which serve as military bases. Never heard of these territories? Don't worry, neither is their president. As you can see on the map, 50% of the people live in this eastern part of the USA, which is superficially twice the size of the western part. However, most people live in cities like New York, Los Angeles, Chicago, Philadelphia, Houston, and San Antonio. Now, let's move to races. Race in the United States is a very taboo topic these days, but according to Wikipedia, whites make up 61%, blacks make up 12%, two or more races make up 10%, Asians make up 6%, while Native Americans make up only 1%. It is also believed that Hispanic Americans make up 18%, but be very careful with this information, there are many undocumented immigrants. It is believed that 12% of Americans have German ancestry, 9.4% English, 9.2% Irish, 4.8% Italian, and 2.8%.
Tylko jedno w głowie mam, koksu 5 gram, odlecieć.
Religion. The most represented religion is Protestantism with almost 40%, followed by non-religious with almost 30%, then Catholics with 19%, Jews with 2% and Muslims and Hindus with 1% each. But the question is how true this is because of illegal immigrants. Now that we've finished this, we can get down to history. It is believed that the first humans arrived on North American soil 30,000 years ago, across the Bering Strait. The earliest recorded European mention of America dates back to the 11th century, when the Vikings arrived. We have evidence of their arrival in what is now Canada and the northern US, but there are not many traces of them. In 1492, America was discovered by Christopher Columbus, and from then on, the colonization of the European countries of the new continent began, led by the Spaniards. The Europeans brought their slaves there, took various expensive spices and crops like potatoes and tobacco, which were not previously known. They also took property from the natives and committed horrific crimes. It is believed that the Spanish colonizers were responsible for the death of 90% of the South American population, but that is a topic for another video. Soon, this territory was colonized by the British and the French, and they all fought each other for supremacy. The British held the east coast of the United States and Canada, and the 7 Years' War with the French led the British into an economic crisis. To get out of this, they raised taxes on all products they shipped to North America, especially tea. And how would the British population in America survive without their favorite drink? This and their long-standing desire for independence caused them to rebel and in 1776 begin their war for independence. Due to the well-organized struggle and the great distance from Britain. In 1784 they signed peace and established a republic at the Philadelphia Convention in 1789, and the first president was George Washington. In 1830, they began expanding westward. In 1844 they conquered Texas in the Mexican-American War and purchased territories from Spain in the central part of the continent. They bought New Mexico and California in 1849, and that's when the gold rush began, stories from the Wild West and other shits we've seen in movies. The American Civil War is also a story I could make a separate video about, so we'll just keep it short. The North was industrialized while the South was largely agricultural and dependent on slaves working the farms. Aware that slavery would backfire on them, Northern politicians became advocates for the abolition of slavery, which the wealthy landowners in the South didn't like. In 1860, Abraham Lincoln, who advocated for the rights of slaves. It split into the Union, which consisted of 23 northern states, and the Confederacy, which consisted of 11 southern states. The North was led by Ulysses S. Grant, while the South was led by William Sherman. In 1863, Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation, freeing slaves in the South, thus igniting the conflict. This bloody conflict, which claimed more than 600,000 lives, ended in 1865 with a Union victory. The Russian Empire sold Alaska to the United States in 1867 for a paltry $7.2 million, which would be worth $164 million today. Yes, Alaska, rich in oil and other natural resources, was sold for such a cheap price. Over time, the United States develops economically and becomes a great power. To assert its power, in 1989 it seized the Philippines from Spain. Although World War I engulfed the entire world, the main battles took place in Europe, which helped America remain intact. It entered the war in 1917 on the side of the French and British, its former colonizers. What an irony! Due to the large number of Americans of German descent, as well as the public's opposition to the United States' involvement in a war that was not even on their continent, the Allies found it difficult to win them over to their side in World War II. However, after the Japanese attack on the American military base at Pearl Harbor in Hawaii in 1941, Franklin Roosevelt made a decision and invested in this war. Together with the Allies, they defeated Germany and established a new era of peace. I'm kidding, the Cold War began with their new enemy, the Soviet Union. In order to prevent the spread of communism, they formed NATO with Western European countries in 1949. Over the next 50 years, there were proxy wars between the USA and the USSR, overthrows of governments, illegal invasions, and stacking nuclear weapons. With the fall of the Soviet Union, America remains the only superpower that can spread its influence all over the world. That would be history in a nutshell. Now we move on to the economy. With a nominal GDP of $30.6 trillion, the United States is by far the most powerful economy in the world. But not for long, as China is believed to overtake it by 2040. When we divide GDP by the number of inhabitants, we get that the average inhabitant makes almost $90,000 per year, which would be about $7,500 per month. Very impressive if you ask me. They made this wealth by selling weapons and exploiting resources from the Middle East, energy sales, financial and banking services, healthcare, and information technology. I don't even need to mention global leaders like Apple, Amazon, Google, Walmart, McDonald's, Tesla, Coca-Cola, Nike, Jordan, and many others. It is estimated that about 37% of millionaires and 33% of billionaires from around the world live in the US. Also, the US dollar is the most stable currency in the world, and the value of other currencies is determined relative to the dollar. The largest economy in the US is the state of California, with its $4 billion. If it were an independent state, it would be the sixth largest economy in the world. Then come Texas, New York, Florida, while the state with the weakest economy would be Wyoming. The United States' largest trading partners are the European Union, Mexico, Canada, and China. That's it for economics. Now let's move on to geopolitics. The United States spends by far the most money on the military and weapons in the world. These enormous investments have allowed it to be the most influential country in the world with the highest quality military. In terms of the number of active soldiers, which is logical because India and China have much larger populations. In terms of nuclear weapons, they are in second place, just below Russia. Don't forget that it was the US that patented the first nuclear bomb, which they tested over Japan in 1945. The USA, Canada, and 10 other European countries founded the NATO Pact in 1949, with the aim of fighting communism. However, the Soviet Union is no more, so why does this pact still exist? Well, it exists so that the USA can maintain its influence in Europe and the whole world, or as they would say, for the sake of stability and peace in the world. In addition to the NATO Pact, they have an alliance with Australia and New Zealand called the ANZUS Treaty, a very creative name. Also, the US has defense pacts with individual countries such as Japan, South Korea, the Philippines, and Thailand called bilateral treaties. The USA is very influential throughout North and South America and Europe. Their most important allies are Saudi Arabia, India, South Africa, Israel, and Taiwan. They also have a large number of enemies, the biggest of which are Russia, China, Iran, Pakistan, and of course the supreme leader. They have chosen alliances wisely, in order to weaken the influence of the opposing country in the region. For example, the US has good relations with Taiwan and Japan in order to reduce the influence of its rival China in Asia. Or, they support and arm Saudi Arabia so that Iran's influence in the Middle East does not dominate. Yes, they support a country in which democracy is a mental noun just so that they do not lose influence in the region. This is not the first or last time they have acted so hypocritically. After this long exposition, it's time to relax with some interesting facts. The American flag has 50 stars on it, representing the 50 states, but I bet you knew that. The first man to land on the moon was Neil Armstrong in 1969, but I bet you knew that too. Okay, here's something more interesting. It is estimated that there are about 400 million firearms for a population of about 330 million, which means that on average each person has 1.2 guns at home. The number of cows in Montana is about 3 times the number of people. A large number of burgers are probably produced there. In the USA there is a town called Nothing, a place in Arizona where until recently 4 families lived and now no one lives there, but you can still send a letter by mail. It would be creepy if someone answered that letter. The number of phone lines and mobile devices registered in NYC alone exceeds the total numbers of many African countries combined. The most visited tourist destination is New York, which is visited by more than 60 million tourists annually. Famous buildings include the Statue of Liberty, Times Square, Central Park, the Empire State Building and Broadway. Also worth visiting are the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco, Hollywood, Walk of Fame, Beverly Hills and Santa Monica Beach in Los Angeles, the Grand Casinos in Las Vegas, the nightlife and clubs in Miami, Yellowstone National Park, the Grand Canyon in Colorado, jazz clubs in New Orleans, the White House in Washington, D.C. and many others. And that's it for today. The United States is a huge country and there's a lot to see. I'd like to ask you to leave a like and subscribe to the channel, because a lot of effort went into this clip. I'm working on my potato computer. Write in the comments which country I should make a video about next. I hope you enjoyed it, and until the next video, greetings.